Because you guys really seem to enjoy the animation that I made for the Death Stranding scanning effect in real life. Today we're going to break down the scene a little bit more, and also I will share with you guys the geometry nodes setup that I made in Blender to recreate this effect. So you can actually go to the first link in the description and you can download the project file with the effects, and consider this video more of a breakdown of the effect and also how to use the node setup that you can purchase from me. Let's go. So if we break down the effect in simple terms, we first have this grid that is formed in front of the player, and also we have this sweeping element that is basically scanning the terrain and leaving some marks behind it. And placed on that grid we have points, and also depending on the type of terrain we have different elements that go onto those points. I need to actually shout out game dev buddies, because these guys recreated the effects in Unity, so in the game engine. When I was researching how to recreate these effects, I used them a lot on how they broke down things. Yeah, if you want to more real time and in engine, this is the video for you. Let's now open our favorite free software and let's break it down. So when you get the project file, this is what you will see. We have a very neat geometry node setup that has everything we need to focus on art direction and kind of forget about how everything is made. Of course, it looks better in cycles, but it's actually, I don't feel like it's necessary to render it. Actually, for the, the final effects that you saw on Instagram, it was rendered in Eevee. So this is cycles, this is Eevee, so not a big difference. So let's go into the effects. And this is the heart of it. We are creating a grid, and we are creating these points on the grid, and we are then using different elements to put on the grid depending on the terrain. We then use another one called raycast, and raycast is very fun because it's basically projecting a lot of rays, and it's checking when those rays hit a certain geometry. And we are basically displacing those dots to match that terrain. And if we increase the strength and kind of displace it, we see how the dots are conforming. Go back to, so everything is kind of conforming to that new geometry, which is super cool and automatically done by geometry nodes. So it's basically what we're doing here with the raycast, and we do that with several different other geometries depending on the type of terrain it is. So we have basically a plane here, and of course for the scenes you would make this geometry more complex, but if we move this around, it also changes where the dots are. And it's always placed in the grid like we want. And I have a bunch of these, just checking where to put things, and we basically just disable them when we're done. Although you have a lot of control over everything here, there's a lot of things that are baked in the geometry nodes and also in the shader side of things. So for example, if we go to the crosses, they flicker and they go up and down. Same thing for all the other elements. So one big topic is, how do you start the effect? If you have your scene and basically you just want to start the scanning like 2 or 3 seconds after the video starts, how do you control that? That's actually pretty easy. So if we go to cone visibility here, and we have here 2 different elements. We have the actual cone, so the whole effect will just go out of this cone, and this is where I have my camera, and it's actually cool because the whole system is connected to this node. So if we want to change the whole effect, we can just change this empty, and everything kind of goes together with it. It's super easy to use. And to this cone, of course, we don't always have the cone. We have a boolean, so we are cutting that cone. This guy here have some keyframes here, and it's basically just changing these around and it will start the effect. Just these two keyframes basically is what you need to worry about for the entire effect. Probably there's a better way instead of this boolean because it kind of makes things a little bit slow. Maybe someone knows how to do it in geometry nodes. I try it, but I mean, I'm not the best at this geometry node stuff compared to a bunch of people here on YouTube. But this is what I came up with, and it's working, so it's good enough, I guess. So when the effect starts, you see all these interactions between the scanning and the geometry. So if we have something like, I don't know, a box or, I don't know, like in my scene, a bridge, whatever. Let's create a cube. Oops. So if we go back, of course, because we just created, it's not interacting with the effect, but we can just go to here, geometry scan outline, and it's now interacting with the scene. So in the shader sides, you get everything here for free, basically. You have these scanning lines, and it just interacts with that scanning boundary. And yeah, super simple to use. So we have these boxes, and sometimes we would like to put some dots on top of the boxes because that's part of the terrain and it should project on top of geometry. And to do that, we can have these boxes that have nothing projected. Sometimes it's also useful, but if we want some, we just need to move them into this collection, the grid projection collection. So if we go, for example, here, just enable this for a second. So the cube 2, and we just press M and grid projection. Now it's working, cool. Yeah, so now we get the dots projected on top of the geometry, and if we move it, it keeps projecting on top of it. And just move this vertex down, and yeah, so it's being projected on top of the geometry. Cool. So I think now we have the context to go into depth on the effect so that we can see how I broke down this problem of recreating the Death Stranding scanning effect in real life. So basically, to create the scene, first we need some footage, and believe it or not, I went outside. First thing I did was tracked the footage using Blender. I think I spent a lot of my time here trying to get a good track. If we want to have a lot of interactions with the terrain, we have, in this case, to recreate it. So if we go outside, we can see that all of these things had to be placed by me so that when we actually scan it, yeah. So like we saw before, it's basically the same thing, but now we have fancy objects in the scene and it's motion tracked and it's a little bit more complex, but the principles are still the same. Actually, maybe I show you the After Effects compositing. Yeah, why not? So let's solo things. So first we have the footage that I showed you before. Then we have the scanning elements, and this is just the emission side of things. So if we go to the blending modes, it's set to screen. So in the game, every time you have the red dots, there's a flash, like a red flash. So as you can see here, I can zoom in a bit more. If I go in, so yeah, so it's basically this element, just flashes. And then the BTs show up and ruin the party, like always, so very faithful to the game. But it's super simple, so straight up just screen or add, blend modes, and that's it. Hopefully you enjoyed following along and seeing a little bit more of behind the scenes of how to create these types of effects and what you can do with geometry nodes if you spend a little bit of time learning it. Okay, that's it. Took a little bit longer than I expected. See you next time. Peace.